Something happens to your body in the hours before you fall asleep, and most people never notice it until it's already too late to stop it. It doesn't hurt. It doesn't announce itself. There's no alarm, no warning light, nothing that says, "Pay attention to this." And that's exactly why it slips past almost everyone, night after night, for years. If you're caring for an aging parent, or if you're the one waking up tired no matter how many hours you slept, what you're about to hear might explain something you've been quietly wondering about for a long time. Because there are 3 signs the body sends out before sleep stops doing what it's supposed to do. 3 signals, each one a little harder to ignore than the last. And by the time you reach the 3rd one, you'll understand why so many seniors wake up feeling like they barely slept at all, even after 8 or 9 hours in bed. Let's start with the first sign. It's the one that gets dismissed the most, because on the surface, it seems harmless. Cold feet. Not cold in the sense of the room is a little chilly, cold in the sense that even with socks on, even under blankets, even in a warm house, the feet stay cool to the touch, almost like they're disconnected from the rest of the body's temperature system. Most people brush this off. They blame it on age, on thin skin, on poor circulation, and they move on. A pair of warm socks, maybe a heating pad, and the problem feels solved enough to ignore. But here's what almost nobody realizes. The feet are one of the first places the body shows you that blood flow is struggling to keep up. They're the farthest point from the heart, the last stop on a long journey through the circulatory system. So when something starts to slow down, even slightly, the feet are often the first to feel it. And when blood flow to the feet and lower legs becomes sluggish, especially in the evening, it can interfere with something most people never connect to their feet at all: the body's ability to wind down and prepare for deep, restorative sleep. That's sign number 1. And on its own, it might seem small, but it's setting the stage for what comes next. Sign number 2 is the one that frustrates people the most, because it feels completely random. Restlessness in the legs, right around the time the body should be settling down. An urge to move, shift, stretch, or even get up and walk around, just as the lights go off and the house gets quiet. Some people describe it as a crawling sensation. Others say it's more like an ache that won't quite locate itself, a feeling that something in the legs is off, but not painful enough to call it pain. What people usually think is happening is that they're simply not tired yet, or that they had too much caffeine earlier, or that their mattress needs replacing. What's actually happening is often more specific than that. The same circulatory sluggishness that causes cold feet can also cause a buildup of pressure and tension in the muscles and nerves of the lower legs, especially after a day of sitting, whether that's in a chair, a car, or simply resting more than moving. And when that tension builds up right as the body is supposed to be relaxing, it creates a kind of internal conflict. The brain is trying to slow down. The legs are sending signals that say, something needs to change. And that conflict can delay sleep onset by minutes that feel like hours, or wake someone up in the middle of the night with no obvious cause. 2 signs down: cold feet, restless legs at bedtime. Individually, they might seem like nothing more than minor annoyances, the kind of thing people have learned to live with for years. But sign number 3 is different. Sign number 3 is the one that connects everything else together. And it's the one almost nobody notices, because it doesn't happen at night at all. It happens in the morning. It's that specific kind of tiredness that doesn't match the number of hours slept. The kind where someone wakes up, looks at the clock, realizes they were in bed for 8, 9, sometimes 10 hours, and yet they feel like they could close their eyes again immediately. Not groggy in the normal, just woke up way that fades after a few minutes. A deeper kind of fatigue, a heaviness in the body, a mental fog that takes much longer to lift than it should. Most people interpret this as simply getting older. They assume that needing more time to feel awake, feeling stiff, feeling like the body just doesn't bounce back the way it used to, is an unavoidable part of aging. So they accept it. They build their mornings around it. They stop expecting to feel rested because they've stopped believing it's possible. But here's the deeper truth. That morning fatigue isn't necessarily a sign that someone slept the wrong number of hours. It can be a sign that the quality of sleep itself was disrupted, specifically during the deeper stages of sleep where the body does its most important repair work. And those deeper stages of sleep are heavily influenced by something that happens before sleep even begins: how relaxed the nervous system is, how well blood is circulating, and how much tension is sitting in the body when the head hits the pillow. In other words, the cold feet, the restless legs, and the unrefreshing mornings aren't three separate, unrelated issues. They're three expressions of the same underlying pattern. A pattern that, once you understand it, starts to make a lot of frustrating nights and groggy mornings make a lot more sense. So now the real question becomes, if this pattern is so common and so disruptive, why doesn't it get talked about more? Part of the reason is that each individual sign seems too minor to mention. Cold feet? Everyone has cold feet sometimes. Restless legs? Probably just nerves. Tired mornings? That's just what getting older feels like. But when you put all three together, what you're really looking at is a body that's struggling to fully relax and circulate well in the hours leading up to sleep. And that struggle is quietly affecting the quality of rest night after night. The good news is this. Because all three signs are connected to the same underlying pattern, addressing that pattern doesn't require three separate solutions. It doesn't require medication, expensive equipment, or a complicated new routine. It requires something that takes just a few minutes, that can be done sitting on the edge of the bed, and that directly targets the exact mechanism behind all three signs. A simple foot exercise, done before bed. Here's how it works, and more importantly, here's why it works. The feet and lower legs contain a dense network of muscles, tendons, and blood vessels that play a surprisingly active role in circulation. Every time those muscles contract and release, they help push blood back up toward the heart, working almost like a secondary pump that supports the circulatory system, especially after a day of sitting or limited movement. When that pump isn't activated regularly, especially in the hours before bed, blood and fluid can settle more heavily in the lower legs and feet. This is part of why feet feel cold in the evening, why ankles might feel slightly puffy by the end of the day, and why the legs can feel restless right when stillness begins. The exercise itself is straightforward. While seated, the feet are lifted slightly off the floor. Then, in a slow, controlled motion, the toes are pointed forward, stretching the top of the foot before being pulled back toward the shins, stretching the calf. This is repeated rhythmically, slowly, for several minutes, often paired with gentle ankle circles in both directions. What this does is reactivate that secondary circulatory pump. It encourages blood that has settled in the lower legs to move more freely. It releases some of the muscular tension that builds up after a day of sitting or standing, and it sends a signal to the nervous system that the body is transitioning, gently, from activity into rest. This is the part that surprises people the most. It's not about strength. It's not about flexibility. It's not even really about the feet, specifically. It's about using a simple, repetitive movement to support circulation and signal the nervous system at exactly the moment when the body needs that support the most, right before sleep. And because all three signs we talked about are connected to circulation and nervous system tension in the evening, supporting that one mechanism can influence all three at once. Cold feet often start to feel less persistently cold, because circulation to that area improves before bed instead of stagnating. Restless legs often calm down faster because some of the built-up tension and pressure gets released through movement, instead of building until the body forces a response on its own. And mornings can start to feel different too, not overnight, but gradually, as deeper stages of sleep become less interrupted by the body working overtime to manage circulation and tension issues that could have been addressed before sleep even began. Now, it's important to be clear about something. This isn't a guaranteed fix for every sleep issue, and it's not a replacement for medical care if something more serious is going on. Sleep is influenced by many factors, and for some people, these signs might be connected to other health conditions that genuinely need a doctor's attention, especially if the symptoms are severe, persistent, or getting worse over time. But for many people, especially those who recognize these three signs and have never connected them to anything specific, this simple foot exercise represents something valuable. Not a miracle, not a guarantee, but a small, low-effort, low-risk action that targets a real, often overlooked mechanism, one that plays a bigger role in nightly rest than most people realize. And maybe that's the most important thing to understand here. Sometimes the body isn't asking for something complicated. Sometimes it's not asking for more hours of sleep, or a new mattress, or a different bedtime. Sometimes it's simply asking for a few minutes of attention, in the right place, at the right time, doing something that costs nothing and requires nothing except a few quiet minutes before the lights go off. If you've noticed even one of these 3 signs in yourself or in someone you care about, you're not imagining it, and you're not just getting older. You're noticing a pattern. And now you know what that pattern might be trying to tell you. Tonight, before you turn off the light, take a few minutes. Sit on the edge of the bed, lift your feet, point, flex, circle the ankles slowly, both directions. Pay attention to how it feels, not just tonight, but tomorrow morning when you wake up. If this helped you understand something about your own nights, or about someone you love, that's exactly why this was made. Subscribe, so the next overlooked sign doesn't stay overlooked. And if you know someone who's been waking up tired without knowing why, send this to them. Sometimes the most important information isn't the kind that shouts the loudest. It's the kind that finally explains something that's been quietly happening all along.